When I was elected as chair this past spring, I shared a few of my fundamental priorities. We must think big. We must be bold, and we must do epic shit. We can either make excuses or we can make it happen. Our marketing slogan for this year at Sheep Week is "Come for the sheep and stay for the party." But rest assured, we are here for the sheep. The conservation efforts of the Wild Sheep Foundation, our staff, directors, and countless volunteers reach much further than most of us realize. In addition to directing nearly $4 million last year back to state agencies to manage their respective populations through the sale of auction permits, WSF is also directing over $1.22 million in 14 grant and aid projects across the Western United States, Canada, and Mexico. We also allocated over $300,000 in funding public relations, industry, and professional support, such as One Campfire and Who Cares BC, as well as many others. When you add in advocacy, youth education program, Women Hunt, and all of our other programs, WSF will invest more than $2.6 million this fiscal year on our mission. And of course, the boots and eyes on the ground, our amazing network of chapters and affiliates. Relationships and collaboration is key, and together we can accomplish more. Sometimes WSF will blaze the trail and lead the way. Sometimes we will walk the conservation path side by side. And other times, we will let our chapters and affiliates lead the way. But never forget, we're right behind you and we got your back. Bottom line is, we can't do it without all of you. On my notebook up here for this week, I have one of my favorite quotes. If you don't like change, you're gonna like irrelevance even less. One of the changes for WSF this year was the launch of our own podcast titled Sheep Fever. Be sure to add it to your favorites if you haven't already. The first 2 episodes, Gray interviewed one of the greatest historians, storytellers, and a wild sheep encyclopedia, Mr. Robert Anderson. Is Mr. Anderson in the room tonight? Mr. Anderson is so knowledgeable about the history of wild sheep that I think if you Google anything about wild sheep, Google actually contacts Bob and asks him the answer. Mr. Anderson talked about some of the greatest sheep hunters to ever live, gentlemen of substance and taste, and most of them he knew personally. His seemingly endless stories got me thinking, how amazing would it be to meld the icons of bygone hunting areas and bring these larger-than-life adventurists into the same sheep camp. Imagine, if you will, after days on a train, followed by a long trail ride up the Musqueam River, led by the famous outfitter, Frank Galata, to the main log-style lodge capped with a stovepipe, with wisps of sparks and smoke climbing into the fading dusk. And as the doors open and we duck inside, there's a sight no sheep hunter has ever seen, a sheep camp filled with some of the greatest sheep hunters to ever live. Inside, there at the table, is none other than Basil Bradbury. Alongside him, Art Dubes and L.S. Chadwick. Across from them sits Harry Swank, and yes, you guessed it, the Jack O'Connor. And oh man, when Frank said he had to bring in some big help for this hunt, to help guide on this hunt, I now know what he meant. There, on the edge of the table, is George Campbell Ford Dalziel. And this is my sheep fantasy, so I get to call him Dal. There in the back, by the wood stove, is none other than Roy Weatherby, Elgin Gates, and the giant slayer himself, Mr. Herb Klein. No doubt the evening would be filled with hunting tales of giant rams and the incredible resolve and toughness that these men endured to be successful. Just imagine hearing the first-hand story from Harry Swank and the first-hand story from L.S. Chadwick, and Art Dubes' stories for the never-to-be-touched greatest collection of 4 North American wild sheep with a combined score over 761 inches. Oh, and I'm sure Jack and Elgin will have a story or two as well. Mixed in would be plenty of laughs and enough good-natured ribbing to overload a pair of wooden panniers. Now, I told you all of that to ask you this. What would those sheep icons think about the world of sheep hunting and conservation today? I'm sure just asking the question would make some of them roll over in their grave. Would they commend or question our values, our integrity, our honesty, ethics, and accountability as hunters? What would they say about what the Wild Sheep Foundation is doing in putting and keeping wild sheep on the mountain? More importantly, what would they say that we are not doing? I'd like to think Art Dubes would be proud of our amazing youth program, and Jack O'Connor would speak positively about our new Women Hunt program. I'm sure a few other superlatives about our work in our conservation efforts would be thrown about, but I'm sure there would be stern challenges as well. We must do more. We must collaborate more. We must always put the purpose and mission above all else. On behalf of your board of directors and our staff, I promise you, at the conclusion of our grand finale banquet Saturday night, it is not a finale at all. It's not an ending at all, but rather it's the beginning of a great year for wild sheep conservation. It's time for us to get to work and do epic shit for wild sheep.